and it has just become a little more busier because we've just had some breaking news, an update from US Central Command, which has just released a statement saying last night I'm just reading from its statement here, folks. Last night, a US service member passed away from injuries received during the Iranian regime's initial attacks across the Middle East. The service member was seriously wounded at the scene of an attack on US troops in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that being on March 1. This is the 7th service member killed in action during Operation Epic Fury. Major combat operations continue. The identity of the fallen warrior will be withheld until 24 hours after next of kin notification. So that breaking news that a 7th US service member has now been killed.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation, but Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report. Yeah, please.
You said earlier that we've already won in many ways, but we haven't won enough. What do you consider enough? What's your baseline?
Where they're not going to be starting the following day to develop a nuclear weapon. Where they'll look at that man and some other people from the administration and say, all right, we're not going to do it. They were not willing to say that. And when Steve called up and he said that to me, I said, well, here we go. Let's do it the hard way. But the hard way, I think, is probably the easy way. When basically I can see that they will no longer have any capacity whatsoever for a very long period of time of developing weaponry that could be used against the United States, Israel, or any of our allies. We have great allies in the Middle East, great countries that are allies. And they were staying out of it until they got hit. Someday they'll have to do a story. Why did he do that? Why did they do that? But they were going to hit them. If I didn't hit them first, they were going to hit our allies first. I believe, upon information and belief, but I believe that he was going to, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were looking to take over the Middle East. Now, had Operation Midnight Hammer not taken place, that was definite, because they would have had a nuclear weapon within a matter of weeks. But that took place. That was a setback. But look at the number of missiles they were able to buy and make over the last 6 months. And those missiles were aimed at various countries. And when you look at over 1,000 missiles shot at like UAE, they were looking to take over the Middle East. We got there first. We're lucky. I'll tell you what, the Middle East and those countries, very rich countries, are very lucky that I was president instead of somebody else. I don't think so, no. No, we get along very well on this. He was, I would say, philosophically a little bit different than me. I think he was maybe less enthusiastic about going, but he was quite enthusiastic. But I felt it was something we had to do. I didn't feel we had a choice. If we didn't do it, they would have done it to us. I felt, based on the negotiations that were being had by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and Marco and Pete, and everybody was involved, I felt that they were looking to tap us along before they hit, and I thought they were going to hit. And if they hit us first, that would have been a very bad thing.
Look, one consequence of what's happening in the Middle East is obviously the volatility of the oil market now. And to offset that, the Trump administration has turned Venezuela into a significant oil supplier. Global oil prices have soared past $100 a barrel amid Israeli strikes on Iranian oil infrastructure and disruptions in the Hormuz Strait. Now, Josh, Venezuela has gone from being an adversary to the United States to an ally under Trump.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, actually. Just this past week, I believe it was on Thursday or Friday, the United States actually opened its diplomatic facility in Caracas, Venezuela for the first time since 2019. So this is pretty remarkable stuff. Look, the current women leading Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, is definitely a socialist in the Hugo Chavez, Nicolas Maduro mode. But she's apparently willing to play ball with the U.S. when it comes to our petroleum, oil, natural gas companies going in there to try to take advantage of those resources there. It's true that oil prices are rising on the global crude market. There's been a rise of roughly 50% since the war started, and that's politically, that's not good for Republicans here in the United States when it comes to a midterm election year. I could be wrong about this. I have a sneaking suspicion that Donald Trump has a card here up his sleeve. That card could potentially be as simple as just tapping into what we in the States refer to as the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is something that we basically store a lot of oil and natural gas, essentially for situations exactly like this, to try to contain price fluctuations there. I am hearing rumors, and it's just rumors, and I don't typically like to deal in rumors. I am hearing rumors that the United States might make some sort of strong play to potentially seize an Iranian island near the Strait of Hormuz, trying to essentially open those lines of shipping there. I think that think frankly that the United States Navy is not done when it comes to letting the price of oil get too far out of hand there, because energy is ultimately the mother's milk of really all goods there. When energy prices soar, the prices of virtually every other good soars as well, because you rely on shipping and planes and trucks and everything to get all the groceries in your store and your goods and your services. It all comes down to energy there. So I suspect that Donald Trump is going to have a trick up his sleeve here. It's worth noting as well, by the way, that even though what I said is true, that oil has spiked since the war started, it would have spiked a lot more had Donald Trump and his administration not engaged in prolific offshore and onshore oil and natural gas drilling just over the course of the past year after the Biden-Harris regime shut down a lot of those wells there. So it's not ideal right now. Again, I think it's going to get better, but it would have been a lot worse were it not for much more of this drilling that they've done already.